The truth about toxic relationships. Have you ever wondered why you keep being a fool in a relationship that hurts you? Why you keep being a white sucker for someone who humiliates you? You know you're unhappy, that this relationship drains your energy, that the other person will never change, and yet you stay there, like a chump, accepting crumbs. You've tried to leave, promised that this time would be different, but something always pulls you back. Why? What makes even the suffering not enough for you to stop being a more pushover? Listen here, the answer isn't in the other person. It's not because they manipulated you so well that you became a puppet without personality. It's not because you love them so much that you can't leave. It's not because things were good once and could be good again. The truth that nobody has the courage to tell you is this. The problem lies in what this relationship awakened in you, in your addiction to being treated like garbage. Toxic relationships aren't just about fights, lies, and manipulation. They're about you having transformed into an emotional doormat, about old wounds that never healed and that you use as an excuse to keep being submissive, about the pathetic fear of being alone, about your sick need for validation. You're not trapped by the person. You're trapped because you got used to being treated like a dog, and now you bark when commanded. The anatomy of silent pain. Let me tell you about Michael, 32 years old engineer, 4 years being manipulated by Sarah. Michael never yelled, never got physical, but he had a special talent, making Sarah doubt her own sanity while he played the manipulator he was. When Sarah expressed an opinion, Michael wouldn't contradict her directly. He would simply arch his eyebrow and murmur, "Interesting," with a tone that made it clear she had said something senseless. When she got upset, he would sigh, "You're being dramatic again." Marie-France Hirigoyen, psychiatrist and expert in psychological violence, teaches us that we can destroy someone with just words and implied looks. The manipulator doesn't need screaming to break you. He uses silence as a weapon, indifference as a hammer. I know this because I was a complete fool during my relationship with Jessica. She had a devastating technique. Whenever I tried to express something that bothered me, she would listen to me in silence with a condescending smile and then say, "Are you done?" That simple question made me feel like a pathetic child throwing a tantrum. Gradually, I stopped expressing my needs. I stopped being myself. I turned into a puppet. Hirigoyen explains that moral harassment happens through micro-violence, small acts that, isolated, seem insignificant, but together form an invisible prison where you become a voluntary prisoner. The signs are always there, but you ignore them. Your feelings are always exaggerated, your memories constantly questioned, your achievements minimized, your family and friends subtly disqualified. You walk on eggshells around this person like an obedient little dog. The hard truth you need to swallow. If you need to constantly police yourself to not provoke your partner, you're not in a relationship. You've become a doormat with legs. The cold logic of the manipulator. Now let's go to the other side of the coin, because you need to understand how the mind of this person who uses you works. Niccolo Machiavelli wrote The Prince in 1513, and his observations about power and manipulation are as current today as they were 500 years ago. Machiavelli teaches us something that you, naive person, refuse to accept. The manipulator doesn't feel guilt. He only calculates effectiveness. Of men, it can be said that they are ungrateful, fickle, simulators, cowards, and greedy for profit. Think of your manipulator as a modern prince. He wants to keep his kingdom, which is you, under absolute control. And you let him, because you became a submissive subject. First strategy, being feared, not loved. Machiavelli wrote, "It is much safer to be feared than loved." The manipulator doesn't want you to love him unconditionally. He wants you to fear losing him like an addict fears being without drugs. Take Jennifer, 26 years old, who spent 2 years being manipulated by Brad. Brad never threatened her directly, but always made it clear that she was lucky to be with him. You know nobody's going to love you like I do. Look at your past. Who else would accept you like this? Brad didn't need to be violent. The pathetic fear of being alone was prison enough for her to stay in line. Second strategy, controlling information. A Machiavellian prince controls what his subjects know. The manipulator does the same thing. He becomes your only reliable source of truth, while you accept everything. It was when I read Machiavelli that I understood what Jessica, that calculating person, was doing to me. She wasn't cruel by impulse. She was strategic, while I was completely naive. Every comment about my family, every questioning of my friendships, every belittling of my achievements, everything was calculated. The goal was to isolate me, make me dependent on her approval, turn me into an obedient little dog. And I let her, because I couldn't see the game. Intermittent reinforcement. You became an addict. Have you noticed that no matter how painful this relationship is, there are moments when everything seems perfect? Those rare instances when the other person is exactly who you want them to be? When it seems like everything will finally change? You cling to those moments like a desperate person, reliving every detail, convincing yourself that this is the true essence of the relationship. But this isn't love. This is addiction. You became an emotional drug addict. B.F. Skinner discovered that the most effective way to keep someone addicted was to reward them unpredictably. Instead of giving food every time a rat pressed a lever, scientists began giving food only occasionally without a defined pattern. The result? The rats became completely addicted. They pressed the lever repeatedly, desperate for the next reward, unable to stop. Now replace the rats with you and the lever with your relationship. It works the same way. You became a lab rat. If the other person were cruel all the time, leaving would be easy. But they give you small, random doses of affection, making you keep trying like a desperate addict, always waiting for the next emotional reward. And the most perverse thing is that this mechanism trains you to accept less and less. In the beginning, you might have demanded respect, reciprocity, commitment. But after so many ups and downs, your standard changed. You became an emotional beggar who settles for crumbs. Gaslighting. When you become confused. If you've ever found yourself asking, am I exaggerating? Am I the problem? Maybe I'm going crazy. Then you've already been completely manipulated and didn't even notice. Gaslighting is when someone distorts reality to the point of making you doubt your own feelings, memories, and even sanity. It's an extremely effective control technique because it transforms you into a person in a constant state of doubt. Here's how it works. You notice something wrong in the relationship, maybe a strange behavior, a contradiction, a lie, and you confront the other person. But instead of taking responsibility, this person flips the game. They accuse you of exaggerating, paranoia, of creating problems where none exist. Phrases like, you always misunderstand everything. Wow, you're so sensitive. That never happened. You're imagining things, start becoming common, and you start believing it. Over time, you begin to doubt yourself. You replay conversations in your head, try to remember details, seek evidence to validate your feelings. You become a detective of your own sanity because you're being manipulated. Let's look at Amanda, 28 years old, advertising executive. Her boyfriend Robert, a classic manipulator, had the habit of arriving late to dates, but always with an elaborate excuse. When Amanda complained, he would say, "You're making things up. I've never been late." Even when Amanda showed the messages proving the delay, he would respond, "You're paranoid. We need to talk about your insecurity." Robert wasn't just lying. He was rewriting Amanda's reality, and she let him. The fear of loneliness. You became a coward. Have you found yourself thinking, what if I never find another person? Or, what if nobody else loves me? Have you caught yourself believing that if you just try a little harder, have a little more patience, or change something about yourself, maybe this relationship will finally work? Congratulations, you became an emotional coward. The fear of loneliness isn't irrational, but using this as an excuse to continue being treated like garbage is impressively cowardly. Since childhood, we're taught that being alone is a bad thing, something to be avoided at all costs. Now combine that fear with a relationship that destroyed your self-esteem, where you were conditioned to believe that nobody else would understand you, that nobody else would accept you the way this person accepts you. The result? You convince yourself that leaving would be a mistake, that it would be better to endure what's bad than to risk being alone like a pathetic coward. But listen here, what you're feeling isn't fear of loneliness. What you're feeling is emotional withdrawal. You became an addict. Toxic relationships create a state of dependency similar to addiction. You're not just attached to the person, you're trapped by hope. You remember the person they were at the beginning, those moments when everything seemed perfect, and you believe that if you just hold on a little longer, that version of them will return. You rationalize the bad moments, justifying them as temporary phases. You cling to empty promises, to sweet words said at the right moments, and ignore the reality of their actions. This isn't love. This is the illusion of change. The problem is that real change doesn't happen because you wanted it to. It doesn't happen because you loved enough. It doesn't happen because you sacrificed yourself until you became a doormat. True change only happens when the person recognizes the problem and has a genuine desire to transform. Be honest. How many times has this person promised to change? How many times have you heard excuses? How many times have you believed that this time would be different, like a hopeful fool? If nothing changes, it's because this relationship was never meant to change, and you continue there being manipulated. How to break the cycle? Have you noticed that even knowing this relationship is destroying you, something inside you still hesitates like a coward? Even when the pain becomes unbearable, there's still that pathetic voice saying, "What if I'm making a mistake?" Or, "What if I never feel something like this again?" This happens because leaving a toxic relationship isn't just a rational decision. You need to reprogram the way your brain associates love with suffering. You need to go through a true process of emotional detoxification. Stop being an emotional drug addict. Yes, detoxification. Because this relationship functioned like a drug for you. Every small dose of affection was reinforcement to keep you trapped. Every moment of hope was an addictive stimulus. Step 1. Total break. The no contact. If you want to really heal, you need to stop maintaining contact. And that means no messages, no calls, no "let's stay friends." Any contact you have with this person reactivates the emotional conditioning and pulls you back into the spiral of confusion, like an addict who relapses. You might think, but what if they change? What if they realize what they lost? Listen here. If this person were capable of changing, they would have already done it. If they really valued you, they wouldn't have brought you to this point. What they feel isn't regret. It's fear of losing control over you. Maybe you think, but I just want closure. You don't need that. You already know everything you need to know. The closure you want isn't an answer. It's one last reason to continue being manipulated. So cut it. Cut everything. Block them on your phone, leave social media, don't accept crumbs. And prepare yourself, because when you finally do this, the emotional withdrawal will hit hard in your addicted brain. Step 2. Endure withdrawal without relapses. In the first few days, you'll feel emptiness. Your addicted brain was conditioned to seek this person to feel complete, so their absence may seem unbearable. But this isn't longing. This is withdrawal. The problem is that your brain will try to convince you to go back like a coward. You'll only remember the good moments, forget the suffering, and think, maybe I exaggerated. But this is just your addiction trying to turn you into a manipulated person again. The best way to get through this phase is to replace the old pattern with a new one. Fill that emptiness with something else. Get into a routine that keeps you busy. Exercise. Read. Hang out with friends who make you feel good. And above all, don't be a romantic. Make a list of everything this person did to hurt you and reread it whenever you feel like going back like a nostalgic person. Step 3. Rebuild your identity. Toxic relationships destroy self-esteem. You got used to seeing yourself as garbage through the other person's eyes. You were taught to believe that you're not enough, that you'll never be truly loved, that you need to change to be accepted like a submissive person. Now it's time to reprogram yourself. You need to ask yourself, who was I before becoming this doormat? What did I like? What made me happy? What did I abandon to fit into this relationship like a person without personality? Recovery means stopping being a puppet and rediscovering yourself. It means finding your voice, your desires, your autonomy again. You don't need a relationship to be complete. This idea was planted in your head by a society that profits from your insecurity, and you bought this lie. The final choice. There comes a moment when you need to make a decision. Continue destroying yourself in the name of a love that was never real, or finally choose yourself. Because in the end, it doesn't matter what this person feels. It doesn't matter what they promised. It doesn't matter how many times they said they would change. What really matters is whether you'll continue being a doormat, or if you'll have dignity. And maybe at this moment you still feel doubt like a coward. Maybe that pathetic voice inside you is still saying, but what if it's different? What if I'm exaggerating? What if I never find another person? That voice isn't yours. That voice was implanted over time, reinforced by every crumb of affection they made you accept, by every cycle of manipulation that destroyed your self-confidence, by every time you put your own well-being second. But now you know. Now you see. Now you have a choice. Continue being manipulated or recover your dignity. And I need to be direct with you. Nobody's going to save you. No answer will come out of nowhere. No divine revelation will free you from this cycle. Either you make this decision, or you keep repeating this pattern until there's nothing left of you. Because that's the fate of those who remain in a toxic relationship. An emotional exhaustion so great that you become a zombie. You stop knowing who you are, what you like, what you want. You reduce yourself to a doormat in someone else's life. So choose to leave. Choose to break the cycle. Choose to rebuild yourself. And don't think this means it will be easy. On the contrary, the first days will be the hardest. You'll miss them like an addict. You'll want to go back. You'll question if you did the right thing like a coward. But over time, something incredible will happen. The fog will start to lift. Your mind will become clearer. You'll realize that that love was never love, and that you were being manipulated. You'll remember who you were before becoming this pathetic doormat. And then, one day, without warning, you'll wake up and realize that you finally stopped being manipulated and are free. But to get there, you need to take the first step. You need to make this choice now. The question isn't whether you deserve better. You do. The question is, will you continue being manipulated, or will you fight for your dignity? Leaving a toxic relationship isn't failure. It's conquering the greatest victory of your life. Now it's up to you. If this video opened your eyes, if you finally understood that you were being manipulated, I want you to take action right now. Go to the comments and write, "Never again will they manipulate me." This isn't just a comment. It's a commitment to yourself. And if you have courage, tell your experience in the comments. How many of you recognized yourselves in this description? How many discovered they were being manipulated for years? Your story can help other people wake up too.